We came here to fight the landlord. What we didn't expect was her face. 4 months after being kicked out and called a burden, Emma walked into her sister's tenant meeting not as a guest, but as the new owner of their building. What would you say if the person you cast out came back with the keys? Comment below. This one hits deep. You're not a guest anymore. You're a burden. Those were the last words my sister said before shutting the door behind me. The latch clicked like punctuation. Cold air bled through the hallway as I stood in the apartment's entrance suitcase handle, sweating in my grip. Behind me, the polished floors and minimalist decor gleamed as if to erase the imprint I had left over the past months. Ahead, the elevator blinked. I didn't move. Earlier that morning, I had woken up to the smell of coffee already brewed Isabel's doing. She only made 2 cups now. No more accidental third mug waiting on the sideboard. She liked quiet kitchens. Mine, I think, was too noisy even in silence. Morning, I had offered voice hoarse from sleep. She didn't look up from her phone. Emma, we need to talk. The phrase had weight, like it had been practiced, scripted. We sat in the living room as formal as strangers negotiating a lease. I know things have been hard. She began folding her perfectly manicured fingers together. But it's been 4 months. You've had time. Ethan stood by the fireplace, hands in his pockets, eyes conveniently focused on a minimalist print of a tree that hung above the mantel. I'm trying, I whispered. I've been applying. You're always trying, she said. Trying doesn't pay rent. I swallowed, trying to match her tone. Neutral, adult. I've got interviews this week. 2, actually. That's good, Ethan chimed in. We're not saying this as an attack, Emma. It's time you stood on your own feet. I looked at him, then at her. So, what is this A deadline? Isabel pulled out a typed sheet of paper. There were bullet points. A suggested timeline for relocation. A list of borrowed items to return. A note, please do not leave food in the fridge. I couldn't remember the last time she'd hugged me. Maybe when I moved in. Maybe not even then. I went back to the guest room, or what had become my holding cell, and began packing. The walls were blank now. She had taken down the print I'd hung a watercolor of Lake Michigan I painted years ago. Isabel once called it muddy. She said it didn't match her aesthetic. Funny how even my memories were unwelcome. I placed my books into the suitcase one by one, trying to delay, as if time would turn back if I moved slowly enough. A small flash of a moment returned me, 6 years old, holding up a crayon drawing of our family's stick legs, uneven heads, but all smiling. Isabel had glanced over and said, "That's useless. Why'd you draw your hair like mine?" She'd always hated resemblance. Hated when people said we looked alike. In the hallway, I zipped the suitcase and stood for a second, waiting maybe for a hand to stop me. A word to pause the exile. Nothing came. At the door, Isabel held out a small clipboard. You borrowed a scarf of mine. Blue cashmere. I left it in the closet. She nodded. Cold approval. The final audit before eviction. As I turned to go, Ethan said quietly, "We hope this pushes you to grow." Grow? Like I was a weed that needed trimming. The door clicked shut. I stood in the elevator, hands shaking. Not from rage. Not yet. Just hollowness. A kind of weightlessness that comes after being dislodged from a place you didn't know you were still clinging to. Outside, the Chicago wind knifed through my coat. I walked 3 blocks before I sat down on a frozen bench, suitcase beside me, nowhere to go. Then I remembered the bottom zipper pocket. I reached in, fingers numb, and pulled out an envelope. To be opened only when you feel like there's nothing left. Signed, Grandpa. I've been waiting years for you to walk through this door. The woman across the desk smiled like she knew all my scars. I hesitated just inside the frame, still unsure if I belonged there or anywhere really. Clara hadn't aged much since I last saw her. Her silver hair was pinned back in its usual low bun, the same sharp glint in her eyes I remembered from family gatherings where she'd always slipped me a wink when Isabel interrupted me. The office smelled like dust and lemon oil. Floor-to-ceiling shelves lined with hardback books leaned under their own weight. On the far wall, a black and white photo of Grandpa grinned down at me, younger than I ever knew him. Sleeves rolled, holding a shovel. I stared at it too long. Sit, Clara said gently, gesturing to the worn leather chair across from hers. You've come at the right time. Have I asked, unsure what she meant or why I was here at all. Clara folded her hands on the desk, then reached for a small locked drawer. She pulled out a yellowed envelope still sealed and slid it toward me. I promised your grandfather I'd only open this in front of you, once you turned 25. And only if, well... She paused. You were completely independent of any family support. I blinked. That's oddly specific. He believed in trials by fire. Said the ones who survive know what to do with their second chance. I ran my thumb along the paper's edge. My name was written in his handwriting firm and looping no hesitation. I broke the seal. Inside was a brief letter written in ink that had slightly faded. Clara leaned back, letting me read. Emma, if you're reading this, then you've already felt the coldest part of life being left behind. I always knew you had something more in you. Quiet isn't weak, it's watchful. You don't have to ask for a seat anymore. This time you own the table. Love, Grandpa. Beneath the letter were stapled documents, legal complex foreign to me. Clara pulled a second folder from the desk and opened it for me. A modest stock portfolio, she said, pointing to a chart. Liquid enough to help you move quickly. And this, she tapped the next page, a real estate deed. A mixed-use building in the Edgewater neighborhood. 4 residential units. Unit 4B is currently occupied by tenants named Isabel and Ethan Maddox. I stared at the page. My mouth didn't move, but my chest cracked open all the same. Clara let the silence breathe between us. She knew what that name meant. She knew what it cost me to be here. They're your tenants now, she said softly. I swallowed. He left it to me. He trusted your ability to do something right with it. He believed in quiet people with sharp tools. I looked up from the page. He actually said that? Many times she smiled. He used to say, the loud ones chase credit, the quiet ones get things done. The weight of the building wasn't in the concrete. It was in the choice now laid before me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt dangerous. And not in the way Isabel used to accuse me of emotional, unstable, inconvenient, but in a way that was sharp, deliberate, cold as steel. Clara pushed another envelope toward me, a small one this time, sealed in wax. He left you a journal, too. Bits of thoughts, quotes, sometimes just things he found useful. You'll find it grounding. I took it with reverence, like it might bite or break in my hand. She gave me a moment before asking, do you want legal assistance with taking over management? I don't know yet. You don't have to decide today, she said. But let me be clear, Emma. You have every right to walk away, or walk back in differently. I folded the letter, slid the journal into my bag, and met her eyes. I'm not walking, I said. I'm building, 4 times the rent. This must be a joke. Isabel slammed the letter onto the table, her fingers trembling. Ethan barely looked up from his laptop. Let me see. She shoved the page toward him. Thick paper. Letterhead stamped in navy blue. A new company, M-Line Trust, LLC. Formal, cold. He scanned the contents with narrowing eyes. For $800, we were paying $200. No kidding, Isabel snapped. And look effective in 30 days. 30. The living room, once an oasis of curated neutrals and scented candles, now felt sterile, uncertain. The letter sat like a threat in the middle of their designer marble table. For once, Isabel wasn't in control. And that terrified her more than the money. I'm calling them, Ethan said, snatching his phone. They didn't list a number. He blinked. Seriously? She held up a second page. Just an email. info@mlinetrust.com. Ethan opened his laptop, typing furiously. This isn't legal. There's no way this is legal. Isabel walked to the window, arms crossed. Snow collected along the edges of the fire escape. It's legal if they bought the building. That's just it, he muttered. I checked ownership change last week. Transferred from a holding company to M-Line Trust, LLC. No individual listed. She turned, eyes narrowing. So who the hell is M-Line Shell Corporation? Could be anyone. Anyone. The word clung to the air between them. 2 floors down, Mrs. Weller leaned on her walker, admiring the newly replaced hallway lights. For the first time in 5 years, the bulb outside her door no longer flickered. A handyman had stopped by just yesterday, said the new owner was starting light renovations. About time, she had whispered, as if thanking the building itself. She tucked her rent notice into a drawer. Hers had gone up too, though not quadrupled. A modest increase with a personal note. We are working to improve your space. If this causes hardship, flexible payment plans are available. Management. It wasn't just the lights. Someone had cleaned the elevator tracks, replaced the cracked lobby tiles. Even the mailboxes had labels now. Little details. Thoughtful ones. She didn't know who M-Line was, but she liked her already. Emma sat in a quiet cafe 6 blocks from the building, earbuds and laptop open. Through an anonymous portal, she watched tenant correspondence roll in, some angry, some confused one, even grateful. Clara had insisted on shielding her identity through layers of paperwork, but Emma didn't care about being seen. Not yet. What mattered was being heard. Through change, through order, through structure. The rent increase wasn't revenge. It was reality. The property had been underpriced for years, and now that it was hers, it would reflect its worth. Isabel had once said, "You'll never be responsible enough to handle property." Emma smiled at the irony. She wasn't handling it. She was building it one policy at a time. Her screen pinged. From Ethan, maddoxemail.com. Subject urgent. Rent increase dispute message. We believe the recent rent adjustment is in violation of tenant protection laws. Please respond immediately to discuss a resolution, or we will pursue legal action. Emma clicked archive. That evening, Ethan finally reached someone through the management number listed in a secondary form. A calm woman named Natalie picked up, speaking in precise tones. "We understand your frustration," she said, "but I assure you the ownership transition was done properly. The rent adjustment complies with zoning and municipal statutes. You're free to vacate if the new terms don't suit your household situation." "You can't just do this," Ethan barked. "We've lived here for 6 years and we've honored that," Natalie replied. "We've even offered flexible payment plans and the option to terminate the lease early without penalty. Everything is by the book, Mr. Maddox." He hung up, seething. "They don't care," he told Isabel. "It's all locked tight." She stared at the floor. "This isn't random. What this feels personal." Ethan scoffed. "You think someone targeted us?" She didn't answer, but something twisted in her gut, an unease she couldn't place. She hated not knowing, hated the idea of being at someone else's mercy. That used to be Emma's role. Back in the cafe, Emma refreshed the building dashboard. Repair requests were down. Rent payments trickled in. One stood out Mrs. Weller had already paid, along with a small note. "Thanks for fixing the elevator. My knees are grateful." Emma exhaled deeply. It wasn't about punishment anymore. Not really. It was about respect. She closed the laptop and pulled a pen from her bag. Her planner lay open beside a ceramic mug of chai. She circled a date with steady hand. Feb. 3rd, 6 p.m., Tenant Town Hall. Owner to attend. "We came here to fight the new landlord. What we didn't expect was her face." The folding chairs squeaked beneath the weight of tension. Fluorescent bulbs flickered overhead, casting a pale light across the Maple Street building's common area. The cheap linoleum floor still smelled faintly of paint, fresh from the hallway upgrades. Residents murmured, coats unzipped, but bodies still hunched like the cold outside had followed them in. Ethan stood near the front arms, crossed his voice, already raised in clipped tones. "We're not here to complain. We're here to confront whoever thinks quadrupling rent overnight is standard practice." Murmurs of agreement rippled, but hesitantly. Some tenants had seen the new intercom system installed, the repaired fire escape, the heating fixed. It was harder to complain when things were finally being maintained. Still, discomfort simmered. Isabel sat beside him, face-taut lips drawn into a straight line. She hadn't spoken yet. She wore power like perfume, expensive, subtle, always lingering. A woman from building management. Natalie opened the meeting with a clipboard and a flat tone. Thank you all for coming. We're here to address any concerns regarding the recent transition in ownership and upcoming property improvements. Ethan raised his hand immediately, but didn't wait to be called on. Let's stop pretending this isn't hostile. You've raised rents, you've hidden behind legalese, and now you want us to act like it's business as usual. Natalie gave a patient smile. The owner is present tonight, and she'll be addressing questions shortly. Ethan looked around, eyes scanning every unfamiliar face in the room, where no answer came. Not yet. At the back of the room, Emma stepped in. She signed the attendance sheet calmly. In clear, deliberate strokes, Emma Langford, owner M-Line Trust, LLC. A few people noticed first the scratch of pen on paper, the name. Then Mrs. Weller gasped softly. Isabel's head turned sharply. Their eyes met. The air changed. Emma walked to the front, not rushed, not uncertain, not bending her frame smaller the way she used to. She stood beside Natalie, nodded in gratitude, then turned to face the room. Good evening. I'm Emma Langford. I own this building. For a long moment, no one moved. Chairs were statues. Breathing halted. Ethan stared like she'd materialized from fog. Isabel's color drained not in embarrassment, but in some strange, deeper recognition. Her control shaken. Emma continued, her voice calm, projecting. I understand there's been confusion, so let me clarify. Rent increases were calculated against current market averages. Maintenance is underway. Tenant assistance programs are in place, and I will be present available for all concerns moving forward. Ethan's laugh cut the silence like glass. You did this just to spite us. Emma turned toward him without blinking. No, I did this because I could. And because no one should ever feel disposable in their own home. Isabel stood now, her chair screeching backward. So you bought the building to make a point? Emma looked directly at her. I bought the building to protect something that matters. Respect, stability, my future. This isn't who you are, Isabel said low. You're not cold. You're not built for this. Emma's voice didn't rise. You were right. I wasn't. But you taught me. Ethan stepped forward, fists clenched. Is this revenge? Emma took one step toward him, shoulders squared. No, this is reality. And I just stopped hiding from it. For a beat, there was only silence. Then a sound quiet but steady. Applause. Mrs. Weller rose, reached out her hand. Welcome home, dear. Emma smiled and took it. Ethan turned away. Alone, furious. Even the tenants he'd tried to rile no longer made eye contact. Isabel stared at her sister for a moment longer, then picked up her coat. On her way out, she paused beside Emma, leaned in close. Her voice was a whisper made of glass. You think you've won? Emma didn't respond. She didn't need to. You didn't just break the house, you cracked the mirror, and now you see us clearly. The apartment looked like it was exhaling its final breath. Half-filled boxes, crowded corners like forgotten thoughts, and plastic containers sat untouched on the dinner table, condensation pooling beneath their lids. The room smelled of reheated pasta and something sour or defeat, perhaps. Ethan's voice rose like steam from a boiling pot. You just stood there, Isabel. Said nothing. You let her humiliate us. She sat on the arm of the couch, her legs crossed tightly. Arms tighter. I didn't let her do anything. She was already in control. He paced, gesturing wildly. We should have contested it. Fought the rent, fought her. With what Ethan, she snapped. With pride, we signed that lease. We're tenants now, like everyone else. Not me, he said, grabbing a duffel bag from the hallway. I'm not staying in a place where your little sister plays queen. Her eyes didn't follow him. She stared at a picture frame on the side table instead. Two girls in matching pigtails, one drawing rainbows, the other frowning in the background. You can't blame me for what she did, Isabel murmured. Ethan zipped the bag. I'm blaming you for letting her win. He left the door open behind him. In the silence that followed, Isabel stood. Her heels clicked softly on the wood floor as she crossed to the side table. The photo. She picked it up carefully like it might fight back. The frame's corner had chipped. Years ago, in a move neither of them remembered. But now Isabel took a glue stick from a drawer and tried to patch it. The crack remained visible. She pressed harder. Still there. Hands trembling, she set it down. Elsewhere, Emma sat with Clara in the law office's dusty back room. Clara slid a thin envelope across the desk unsealed. She left this with management, Clara explained. Said it wasn't an apology. Just context. Emma didn't open it. Not yet. She wants a meeting, Clara added. Just once. No lawyers, no tension. Emma considered that. She thought of a childhood day when Isabel had snapped her crayons in half because Emma had colored the sun blue. That's not how things work, Isabel had hissed back then. Maybe that was the first crack. Maybe this was the echo of it. That night, Emma stood outside Unit 4B. Her keycard still worked, though she didn't use it. The hallway light flickered once before settling into a dull hum. She watched through the peephole. No movement inside. No voices. Mrs. Weller's door creaked open behind her. She's been quiet since he left. The old woman said gently, holding a mug of tea. I thought she might need this. Emma turned to her. You gave me tea once. Mrs. Weller smiled, handing the cup over. It's always easier to start with warmth. Emma knocked on the door. Lightly but deliberately. Inside, Isabel stirred. She had placed the picture back on the table, still cracked. She approached the door. And this time, Emma was the one choosing to enter. I didn't come to forgive you. I came to remember who we were before all this. The park bench was cold beneath her, but the sun had started trying again. Buds crept along the edges of tree branches like hesitant apologies, and the breeze smelled faintly of thawed soil. Emma pulled her coat tighter brown wool, the same one from that day in December when the door had closed behind her with a finality she didn't yet understand. Now the same coat felt like armor she no longer needed. Isabel approached without ceremony. No makeup, no heels. Her hands were stuffed into the pockets of a windbreaker she might have once sneered at. She didn't ask if she could sit. She just did. For a while, neither said anything. The rustling of a candy wrapper somewhere nearby, a jogger's footsteps fading into distance. Two sisters quiet, not out of spite, but something closer to honesty. I used to think you were lucky, Isabel finally said. That you got to float, dream, fail without consequences. Emma tilted her head, a half-smile forming. I used to think you were lucky because you never did. Isabel laughed softly. I was scared. Still am. You weren't. That's why I hated you sometimes. Emma nodded. I know. A pause. I envied you. Isabel admitted, voice thin. Because you weren't afraid to try. And when you did fall apart, people cared. Grandpa cared. I was just the one who followed the rules. You rewrote them, Emma said. Then enforced them. Isabel didn't deny it. Emma reached into her bag and pulled out the notebook. Grandpa's old journal, its corners worn, the spine cracked open to a bookmarked page. She handed it to Isabel. There's something you should read. Isabel took it slowly. The quote was underlined twice. Some seeds only grow after a burn. That doesn't make them weeds. She exhaled. He always saw more than he said. Emma's eyes followed a young couple passing by, fingers intertwined, laughter bursting like bubbles. I'll never live in your shadow again, she said, turning back. But I don't need to burn it down either. Isabel blinked. Her lips parted like she might speak, but she didn't. Instead, she nodded. And that was enough. Emma stood brushing crumbs from her coat. Do you want the notebook back? Isabel asked. No, Emma said, her smile soft but sure. It was always for both of us. She walked away, not quickly, not dramatically, just forward. Her phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. Hi, Ms. Langford, should we repaint the lobby in eggshell or cream? Emma smiled. Her fingers hovered for a second over the screen. Then she typed, cream. Let in more light. The wind stirred as she walked petals from a budding magnolia dancing ahead of her on the path. Later that year, she'd sell the building, use the equity to launch something new, the M-Line Foundation, for second chances. And this time, it wouldn't be about proving anything to anyone. It would simply be hers. ChatGPT. Jan Noy, beneath the quiet of a park bench and the first breeze of spring, a different kind of justice took root, one without applause but undeniable in its arrival. The girl once cast out as a burden now stood as a builder, reshaping the very world that once rejected her. Vengeance was never the goal, but fairness demanded a voice, and she spoke not with fury, but with clarity. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. Sometimes the sharpest revenge is simply never needing to knock again.